Hi everybody, it's Adam, the geneticist from Verdure Healthcare, and welcome to the third session on the questions and answers about NiPT. So by now you should know that NiPT actually stands for Non-invasive Prenatal Test. And so, as you might know already, that I'm one of the consultants invited to answer questions which is on the Nuffield Councils on Bioethics. So they have this very good blog post on NiPT. They show some information, some pros and cons about NiPT, and a lot of parents, they are actually posting things and questions on this blog. So if you're interested, please go and visit www.nutfieldbioethics.org/blog/NIPT-private. There is a lot of useful information about NIPT on this platform. Okay, so I'll be answering some questions that are posted on this blog. So today we've got one question from Mira, and this question was like this. Hey, I want to share my story here, as this article and comments were the source of my hopes and belief through the tough period. So hopefully it will help someone in similar situation. Okay, that doesn't really sound good. All right, so here's what she said. I've got NiPT test result positive for Edwards syndrome, in bracket trisomy 18. I was told that it is very accurate, so most likely it's true. Okay, so the midwife said they were all surprised as my first echo was good. Of course, I asked for follow-up investigation. I was 13 weeks already and the doctor wanted to do echo and CVS. He carefully examined the baby and said that the baby looks perfect, normal by echo. Echo is actually the ultrasound. And then he pointed to something which was, in his opinion, a twin baby, okay? He had an assumption that I was initially pregnant with twins, one of which is healthy and looks good on echo now, and another might indeed had a syndrome and didn't develop further, which is typical for Edwards. So this is a sign through ultrasound to see if the baby is stopped growing, then it is an indication for Edwards syndrome. Okay, let's continue. This might explain NiPT result. So based on that, he suggests to postpone CVS and do less risky amniocentesis at week 16, which I did. And in bracket, the baby again looked good to him at week 16, and today I've got confirmation that no Edwards syndrome is found in DNA of my baby. I wish all the best to parents in this tough situation, and I hug every mama to be. Don't lose hope. Okay, so this Mira is sharing a very touching story about the tough time she had went through when the NiPT result actually came back to her and saying that there is a high risk for Edwards syndrome in a baby. So today, let's break things down. So I will explain what exactly is Edwards syndrome. What are the potential causes of Edwards syndrome? Why NiPT test is more accurate? What should an NiPT test include? That is very important. What is the next step after NiPT if the result shows high risk? And finally, now there's a lot of people who shared this on the previous questions as well. Can a general counselor analyze an NiPT report? Okay, what qualifications should a genetic counselor or genetic specialist have? So I will be answering these 5 questions in today's session. Okay, so first thing first, what is Edwards syndrome? Okay, as you might recall by now, in a normal human, we need 23 pairs of chromosomes. All right, so on the first pair to the 22nd pair, these are autosomes, and on the last pair, this is the sex chromosome. So if you have an X and a Y chromosome, you are a male, or you will be having a baby boy in that case. If you don't have a Y chromosome, you have 2 X chromosomes instead, you would be a lady, a female, okay? Or if this is your baby, you will be having a baby girl. Okay, so 23 pairs of chromosomes, 46 in total, okay? So Edwards syndrome, what exactly happened? So on the 18th slot, okay, so over here, instead of having one pair of chromosome, there is an extra piece of chromosome. Now this is called trisomy. Trisomy means that there is 3 chromosomes instead of 2. Okay, so this is the simple mechanism of Edwards syndrome, of what happened. Alright, but what are the symptoms of Edwards syndrome? Now, many people will confuse Edwards syndrome with Down syndrome because they all share one common characteristic: intellectual disability. And for Edwards syndrome, it is a very serious form of intellectual disability. And despite that, the moment you look at this baby, you will be able to see some general characteristic. Now, because some Edwards syndrome babies are very, very horrible. They are really poor babies. So I don't want to show you any real pictures. So instead, I've shown you here a drawing of what can potentially happen. Okay, so the back of the skull, if we look at from the head to the toe, so this is called prominent skull, whereby the skull might have a very different shape. It might be even deformed. Okay. They would usually have small mouth, small jaw, and a very short neck. Okay, so they wouldn't be having this length over here. Instead, they would be like tucked in. Okay, so shielded chest, for example, because of the deformities in the rib bones and the chest bones. Short and prominent sternum over here. It might bulge out a little bit, and then wide set nipples as well. And then their ears, they might have deformed ears, okay? And it looks like this, okay, as you can see, sometimes very low set ear, all right? And clenched hand and often overlapping fingers. So if you're interested, you can go to Google and search Edwards syndrome, but I must warn you of the potential graphical content on there. So if you go there and see, these babies usually have clenched fingers like that, and then sometimes overlapping as well, like this. Okay. Sometimes they have flexed big toe and prominent heels. Okay. Right, but still, these are just only the characteristic of the baby, something you can see. But there are many body parts that have been affected and deformed, including the heart, for example, because often these babies, they are born small and they have a defected heart, often with the blood vessels as well. Okay, so these are the general characteristics, but in terms of how serious it is, it can be different from people to people. Some babies, they have a very serious symptom of Edwards syndrome, and sometimes these babies might not have such a serious symptom and could even be born and live throughout their life. Okay, so what is the cause of Edwards syndrome? Now, this is belonging to the category of spontaneous genetic mutation. So rarely this is a genetic disorder being inherited from the parents to the offspring. Have a think about this. If you can recall previously in my other Facebook premieres, what can generate a genetic disease? So usually when we have something called the autosomal recessive genetic disorder, it means that it takes the mutation from 2 chromosomes together, one from mom, one from dad, having the same chromosome with that particular genetic defect in order to cause the genetic disease. Some of these examples include alpha thalassemia, Wilson's disease, the George syndrome, and it is on a completely different level. Okay, so they are much smaller, and you can't, see it through the look of the chromosome. But at this level, it is much more serious because Edwards syndrome, like I mentioned just now, it is an extra piece of chromosome appearing on the 18th slot. So the moment you analyze the chromosome, you can already see it. So over here, if let's say the baby were to get the inheritance from their parents, so their parents, either one of them, will need to have Edwards syndrome first. okay, and most likely they will not live up to reproductive age, okay. So speaking from a more blunt point of view, usually Edwards syndrome babies, even if they were to grow up in some miracle sense, they are not encouraged to have babies, okay? So, right, I'm sorry if that sounds a little bit blunt. Okay, anyway, so what happened over here? So if it's not inherited from the parents, there must be something wrong with the sperm or the egg cells. Okay, here it goes. So that is exactly the reason why we need to enhance the quality of the sperm and the egg cells before we even try to conceive. So under normal circumstance, the mother and the father will each have their own set of chromosomes, right? Otherwise we wouldn't live. So father will inherit 23 pieces, okay, of chromosome, not pair, piece, okay? And then the mother from her body will draw another 23 pieces of chromosome out of the 46. So in order to contribute to the baby, right, like that. So if that is really what's happening, the baby will get one complete set of 46 chromosomes, okay, 23 from each parent. And this is what it's supposed to be. However, if during the production of the gametes meaning the sperm or the egg cells, if there's something wrong with it, let's just take mother for example. If let's say her egg somehow has got another chromosome in there, okay, let's put aside whatever chromosome it is, okay, and then the father contributes his own normal set of chromosome for the baby, then this baby will be having 3 copies of the chromosome, and that is not normal. It's not okay, right? So in that case, if we were to refer specifically to the Edwards syndrome, what happened is that when the mother contributes her set of chromosome, there is an extra piece of chromosome 18 in her egg cells. Okay, that means she's contributing 24 chromosome, and daddy is contributing his normal 23 piece of chromosome. So in total, all in all, the baby is getting 47 chromosomes. Okay, so this is what happened usually. All right. So in an NiPT, okay, if that can happen to chromosome 18, can that happen to other chromosomes? For example, chromosome 9, chromosome 22, chromosome 21, which is Down syndrome. Yes, it can all happen. So this will come to our next question of the day. Why NiPT test is more accurate than any other test such as triple test or nuclear test? And what should an NiPT test include? Okay, first of all, the most basic one should be chromosomal aneuploidies. So we should check for Down syndrome, Edwards syndrome, and Patel syndrome. These are the most common spontaneous genetic mutations in the world. Okay, not just in Asia, not just in Malaysia, but in the world. Okay, right. But at Verdure Healthcare, our NiPT package will help your baby to check for all his or her chromosome. That means all 23 pairs, which includes the sex chromosome aneuploidy. Now, as far as I know, quite a number of clinics, they don't really analyze sex chromosome aneuploidy. They would just give you these information, but they haven't really gone down to sex chromosome aneuploidy. So there are quite a few situations that can happen. For example, remember when we talked about the X and the Y chromosome, this is a baby boy. So for example, if this baby boy gets an extra piece of X chromosome, then this is the Klinefelter syndrome. And even though that these babies will not develop life-threatening symptoms, still they will be facing a very serious fertility problem. Sometimes they will become sterile, which means that it is impossible for them to have a baby in their life. Okay, so that can cause a lot of psychological problems as well. Right, so let me give you a late example. For example, Turner syndrome, it means that originally a female is supposed to have an X chromosome and another X chromosome. But if she has one X chromosome missing, then this is so-called the Turner syndrome. So Turner syndrome girls, they will not develop their reproductive organs properly, okay? And that is why they will be facing a very serious reproductive issue. Right, and furthermore, part 3 is exclusively done by Verdure Healthcare along with one of the most well-known labs in Malaysia by the name of DNA Lab. So what's happening in here is that despite looking at all these chromosomes, all right, we look at all these set of chromosomes. Now what I'm showing here is a sample of Down syndrome where you can see, right, 21 on the 21st slot place over here, there is an extra piece of chromosome, so that's Down syndrome. So anyway, the 84 microdeletions include Kryder-Kat syndrome, DiGeorge syndrome, Wilson's disease, Angelman syndrome. So microdeletion is a kind of genetic disease where it only affects a few genetic code, and you cannot see those in the chromosome by just looking at the chromosome like this. What you need to do is to look deep into the chromosome and actually count those DNA codes. And this is done by a machine called the next generation sequencing testing machine, okay? So it is a very high technology kind of a test. Not many clinics doing it. And so at Verdure Healthcare, we are very lucky to work with DNA Lab in order to be able to produce such a powerful NiPT test package. Right, anyway, so this is, as I mentioned just now, this is a sample of Down syndrome chromosomal analysis. This is, once again, Edwards syndrome chromosomal analysis, and this is the sample of Patel syndrome. So as you can see over here, on the 13th slot, there is an extra copy of the chromosome. So let's move on to have a look at the risks. Many people on the forum and on the blogspot actually mentioned that, okay, the higher the maternal age of the mother, the more risky it is for them to get a genetically diseased baby. Well, is that true? Okay, in a way it is, because, okay, let's have a look at this graph over here. So this is the risk, and this is the maternal age of the mother, all right? So if we look at this red line, which actually represents the chance of getting one of the disease we just talked about, which is Down syndrome, Edward, or Patel syndrome, so the chances of these three together, and then the blue line actually represents just only Down syndrome. So 30 years old, again in terms of maternal age, is located right here. So before 30, there is pretty much no chance. Okay, I wouldn't say, sorry, let me take that back. Not to say no chance, but a very low chance of getting a diseased baby like this. But if we look at 36 years old, you can see that between 30 and 36, there is quite a bit of a rise already. And after 36 years old, all the way to this 49 years old, there is a huge increase, okay? So on the extreme end, every 1 in 8 babies from the group of 49-year-old pregnant women, 1 in 8 would be getting either Patel, Edward, or Down syndrome. And if we look at just Down syndrome, it is 1 in 11 babies. And still, that is a very high chance. Why is that? Okay, now that relates to how sperms and egg cells are made. Because for girls, when they are still inside their mother's tummy, what happens is that they have already produced enough egg cells for them to ovulate throughout their lifetime. So when this baby girl is born, she will not be making any more new egg cells throughout her life. Okay? So it is very important to cherish these eggs and also take care of the body condition and not to let the quality of these eggs go down. All right? And in terms of sperm productions, for guys, we make sperm cells every 24 hours, and every 3 months, a new batch of sperm cells would actually be produced, okay, replacing all the existing ones. So that is why it is an ever-continuing condition for the guys, but for the ladies, as she ages, her eggs will age as well. And as I mentioned just now during the analysis of why the Edwards syndrome happens, then as you can see that very often if mistakes happen during the production or the maturation of the eggs, then it can actually cause Edwards syndrome. Okay, so that is why the older the maternal age, the more likely it is for the baby to get one of these genetic diseases. Right, and of course, our NiPT package, we will be able to see whether you are having a baby boy or a baby girl. So which one do you prefer it to be? Please let me know in the comment section. Okay, so this is the sex chromosome and diploidy that I've just gone through. So all of these will be analyzed. And let me just mention one more example because previously I've done a talk on triple X syndrome, whereby this is a girl, but unfortunately she has gotten an extra piece of X chromosome. What happened is that she'll become a very tall and thin girl. Her menstrual cycles will be very irregular, but normally there is no symptom to be analyzed. Okay. Right. So now this is what happens when we check for the 84 microdeletions, as we mentioned just now. So this is the piece being broken out from the chromosome, where if this happens, we will be able to pick it out using the next generation sequencing machine. So how does NiPT work? Okay, the moment you get pregnant, there will be a communication between you and the baby. In fact, that's how you give nutrition to the baby, and that's how you will actually throw away the waste products for your baby, through the placenta and the umbilical cord. So in that way, there is an exchange. The baby will be giving you some free-floating DNA in your bloodstream. So what we do is we take 10 milliliters of blood sample from the mother, and we'll be able to separate the baby's DNA out so that we'll be able to do the analysis on the baby's DNA. Okay, so moving on to the next question. What happens next when, touch wood, if we see some high-risk results from the NiPT report? So the next step, the most sensible next step, is to do the amniocentesis. So this is a rather old technology because after all, it will test for the baby's DNA. So it's very similar to NiPT. But the thing is that during older times, for example, like back 10 years ago, amniocentesis would have been a more accurate test compared to NiPT. But now this isn't the case already because NiPT tests reports can be as accurate as 99.9%, and the amniocentesis is also at this percentage. All right, but why not just everyone should do amniocentesis? So as you can see, the mother is lying on the bed here. The doctor is using the ultrasound equipment to echo around this area to see which is the perfect spot to land the needle. So if the needle pokes into the mommy's tummy, imagine what will happen if the baby moves or kicks the mother. All right, so he might be hurting him or herself. So no matter how, there is a 3% miscarriage rate for doing this amniocentesis. And this is exactly the reason why we will not recommend mothers to go for amniocentesis as a first line of DNA check for the baby. So usually we put it one step behind the NiPT. And usually we will do the tail scan with the amniocentesis altogether. All right, and so that comes to the last part of our talk today. Can a general counselor analyze an NiPT report? What qualifications should a genetic specialist have? Okay, so previously, if you recall that I've done my previous talks on answering NiPT question, episode 2 and episode 1. So both mothers actually shared that they have gone to some kind of a counselor, a general counselor, or they have found some kind of a genetic counselor app which can potentially help to answer the question. Well, honestly, as a genetic specialist, I wouldn't really support genetic counselor app because for this report, it is easier to be answered face to face, okay? To do a face to face analysis so that when there's something you don't understand, the genetic counselor can help answering your questions immediately. And also, because we are counselors, we are supposed to comfort you with the result and provide you with a viable solution. So that leads to the next question. What qualification should a genetic counselor have? Okay, so for me, I am actually a medical scientist. I graduated with 2 professional certifications from Tsinghua University. One is the histology, which studies the human tissue structures, what they are made of, and how it works. Secondly is the pathology certification, all right, also from Tsinghua University. And this is a study of where and how disease are originated. And I've taken my studies up further to Beijing University, where I studied pathophysiology and became a researcher with, at least I'm qualified this way, to become a researcher in pathophysiology to study what kind of damage can a disease cause to a human body and how it actually works. And I'm also certified by the Royal College of Surgeons of England with a postgraduate certificate in surgery. So I am originally certified as a surgical instructor with this qualification. All right, but of course I no longer teach surgery. So now, with all these qualifications, honestly, it is still not enough for me to speak to you about genetics. Why? Because in order to become a geneticist or a genetic counselor, you need specific training. So for me, I attained the geneticist certification from Stanford University with this kind of certificate of achievements. And because we're following the US and over here at Verdure, we do offer you the genetic test, and I am the person who's responsible for that. So when we follow the US system, they are getting more strict. They are saying that, okay, you are qualified as a geneticist, but you can be a researcher geneticist, you can be a genetic counselor geneticist. So which one are you? If you're in the lab doing your research, good for you. You don't need any further qualifications. But if you are exposed to clients and you're offering people genetic tests, you need to know what you're doing. Put it in this sense. So that is why the US is requiring all those clients seeing geneticists to get further certification. For me, I've received this from Harvard Medical School, specifically in genetic testing and sequencing technology. All right, and I'm also certified by the Johns Hopkins University with genomic data science. So for this, I will be able to analyze the results and also to interpret genomic data. What do they represent? What is the risk? What are the statistics that is represented by these genomic data? So all of these qualifications put together, only then we are certified enough to speak to you about this NiPT test. It sounds simple, but the science behind it is extremely complicated. Okay, so genetic counselor app are honestly just to put it in a straightforward way, you don't know who is really sitting behind the app. You don't know how qualified they are. Perhaps you haven't even seen them, even through online. Okay, so but here at Verdure Healthcare, we encourage face-to-face counseling pre-test, okay, that means before the test, and also after the test. Okay, that way we have more human interaction. Okay, so with this, we are certified by the American Society for Reproductive Medicine. You need to get third-party peer review level certification or membership, okay, such as this, which is renewed every year because they want to maintain quality, and only then we are, as a company and also as the specialists, being able to serve you with NiPT. Okay, so as we have discussed just now, DNA lab is the lab that is responsible for literally doing the test. Okay, we don't have the machines here at Verdure Healthcare, but we link hands with DNA Lab, and they are located with University Kebangsaan Malaysia UKM's Science Park. So they have been doing a lot of research for UKM as well. So they are a very reputable and long-lasting kind of genetic lab. And we, as a company, we have been here for more than 18 years. And last year, we have just won the Reader's Choice Award for 2021. And this prestigious award is given by the very well-known Baby Talk Mama Papa magazine. Okay, so we just want to thank you very much for that. And without your support, it is impossible. And also we have won, because 2021 in a way is a good year for us, we have also been recognized as a super brand status by super brand. Okay, right. Okay, so if you are now currently 10, 11 weeks pregnant, please do give us a call. We would love to give you further information about NiPT. Now, friends, please, this is not exactly a proper counseling session. So a lot of clients, after they hear me speaking about NiPT, they would just come here and try to skip the pre-counseling session regarding NiPT. Okay, so honestly, there are further information that I want to get from you. For example, exactly how many weeks pregnant are you? Are you pregnant with single or twin? Because that can potentially lead to a difference in terms of the content of the test. And also about family history, because we need to note down all these information in order to produce the most accurate and the best NiPT result for you. Okay, so let us hear from you. Give us a call. Please support us by liking and subscribing to our channel. Share this video to your friends and family whom you know that are currently pregnant right now. Thank you very much. I will see you next time to talk about the other chromosomes. Have a nice day.